All right, welcome to another episode of the Heads Up Sports Podcast. Today, unfortunately, Ben will not be able to join me. He's currently having a pretty busy schedule. So, for this episode, possibly for one or two other ones, maybe it'll just be me solo. Some other episodes, maybe it'll be him solo. It'll all depend on the way the week is going. But we have some news. Unfortunately, we tried to make a podcast about a week ago, and um, the audio, everything got messed up. So unfortunately, that will not be released. It was an episode about fantasy football and all of the positions to buy or sell, and now that is relevant with the season starting and everyone has completed their drafts. So um, that's the news for what has gone on in the past of the podcast. In addition, we are going to start releasing some more daily clips of short reactions to things going on throughout the NFL, MLB, and our various teams. So I might start releasing a few more rapid reactions to Jet games, to Met games when things are going on. And speaking of that, we'll get right into it. And all of my reactions for this week are going to be negative, as they always are for the Mets and the Jets. So this is nothing that has ever been new. The Mets, once again, are in a decline and they are falling apart. They've had a great season thus far, but as of this time in the day, they are losing again 6-0 to the Cubs in the second inning. Now, unless they come back in this game, there's just no excuse for the way they've been playing. The fact that they are going to possibly get swept by the Cubs in the middle of a pennant race is just inexcusable. There's, I just don't get how all of this is happening, how everyone at once has decided to underperform. When it comes down to it, it's been pitching. We've had bad outings from Chris Bassett, from Jacob DeGrom, a bad outing for him, but it's still a pretty good outing. And the bats have just completely fallen apart. Everyone is cold. And these are the times when you really have to look at your stars on your team to step it up, and they haven't. Um, Lindor, he's had a great season, but when it's come down to the clutch time for this season, most of the time he's been there. These past 2 weeks, he's been pretty cold. And in big games, big spots, a couple bases loaded jams where he's grounded into double plays, you know, fouled out a time or two, and it's just inexcusable when you're a superstar on your team getting $300 million. You should be able to come up clutch in these situations to get your team the NL East title. Now I know a lot of people are Lindor haters, and I coming off like one right now, but I actually am a pretty big Lindor supporter. It's just in these past couple of weeks I've been pretty disappointed in him. But I still think he is worthy of that contract. He's the best fielder in the NL. I think he should get the Gold Glove this year for shortstop. I don't know if he will, but I think that he deserves that. Um, Now, my concern level for the Mets with the NL East is high because they've been playing terribly, but luckily the Braves have been playing just as poorly. They're currently, I believe, still losing to the Braves tonight. Um, and losing to the Braves, losing to the Giants tonight. And they've been losing to them, throughout the week. So this is, oh, the Giants officially they won 4-1. Great. Where's that yesterday's score? Regardless, yeah, they lost 4-1. Great. Okay. So luckily, our cold streak has coincided with the Braves cold streak, and we have the easier schedule. We should be able to pull this through. Anything other than an NL East title at this point is inexcusable. It really is. Because if you think about it, if we just beat the teams we're supposed to beat, the NL East has should have been ours. Still can be. But if we took advantage of this series against the Cubs, we could be 3 games up, 4 games up. If we play better against the Pirates, the Nationals, we really could have put this division to bed. But now we put ourselves in a situation where we have to rely on our series against the Braves late down the stretch to determine who wins the NL East. We've been playing better against them this year, but that's not a guarantee to continue when we play them again. And, you know, I just don't know if everyone will be healthy, everyone will perform. And we shouldn't put ourselves in this situation to have to come to the end of the season, a series against the Braves. This team is too good. They've been too good the entire season to just lose focus now. Now, hopefully, in these next couple weeks, DeGrom will play well, Bassett will pitch well, Pete Alonso, Lindor, the whole lineup will start to heat up. Hopefully, Vientos will start to look good. He got called up recently. But until then, I mean, they need a wake-up call. And hopefully this game against the Cubs tonight and this series against the Cubs will be that wake-up call that they needed to realize they need to really focus in. There's only a few weeks left of the season. They're so close, but they're losing focus. And it's just unacceptable. And it really gives me concern for the postseason. Now, if you're going to be cold during any point in the season, maybe now is the best time because then they could, slowly get hot just in time for the playoffs. But they need to start that push now. Without any momentum going to the postseason, you might as well just write us off now. We're not even going to make it out of the first round. But this is a team that has the talent that could go to a World Series and win it. They have the pitching. You have DeGrom, you have Scherzer, you have Bassett. We can win a World Series. They just have to put it together, And it's the same old story with the Mets that they just don't know how to put it together when it comes down to the right time. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we'll be looking back at this and say the Mets had a great comeback tonight. Don't think it's happening. There's been too many games this week where I've had to turn it off after the third or fourth inning. And hopefully, against the Pirates tomorrow and the next series, things will start to improve. But that remains to be seen. Love the Mets, but they could really just, they can make your day or break your day. And lately it's been breaking it. Now another team that's been breaking days, the New York Jets. So, coming into the season, the thought process was, we're not a playoff team. We're not a team that's going to compete for a Super Bowl. And everyone understood that. Everyone, bought into that. The thought process was these first couple of weeks, we won't have Zach Wilson, but Joe Flacco is a solid replacement. He's a game manager. He could get us through a few games to at least compete. There's no excuse after having 3 first-round picks, having one of the highest salaries in the league for a team, and for adding a lot more talent to a team to not compete in games on a weekly basis. Gone are the days of accepting losing by 30 every game and saying, okay, let's get ready for the next draft pick. Let's get ready for next year. And I'm tired of, after week 3, saying, well, let's get the number 1 pick. Enough of that. How many number 1 picks can you get and have them not work? How many other teams are, consistently getting these top picks and not competing? I mean, look at every other game throughout this week. The Giants competed. They won. They were a bad team last year. The Bears competed. They won. They were a bad team last year. The Lions, they didn't win, but they played the Eagles, who are a very talented team, and only lost by 3 points. All these teams, you could argue that they're just as talented as the Jets. There's no excuse. The Texans too, tied against the Colts. And, I've been buying into Robert Saleh. I've been buying into Joe Douglas as GM and coach, but the seat is slowly getting hot. And that is something that I didn't anticipate to start this season. There were some bad things about this game, but there were some good ones too. So I'm going to keep on my pessimistic attitude that I have to start this podcast and talk about all the bad things that happened in this game. And then we'll end on a positive note. So, as I was saying earlier, Joe Flacco, game manager, maybe could help out the team just by, having an Alex Smith type of performance where, maybe not like towards, the best parts of Alex Smith's career, but just be someone who could, manage a game, push the ball down the field a little bit. If you look at his stats, without looking at the game itself, 37 for 59, 309 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Pretty good, pretty, solid, mediocre stat line. If you watch that game, all of that came in the garbage time. And anytime he was pressured, which was the entire day, he looked lost. Anytime there was any kind of interior pressure, he did not know how to move out of the pocket, which is expected because he's, 37 years old. He's not a mobile quarterback, never was. But why, you know, he can't be doing these things where if there's pressure, he becomes afraid and doesn't know what to do with the ball. You're a 37-year-old quarterback in this league. You should be able to manage a game a little bit better. Granted, the offensive line looked terrible in pass downs. George Fant, and I don't even know if I could blame George Fant, the left tackle for the New York Jets. He was originally a left tackle last year, throughout the entire year, played great because he had consistency. Then Mekhi Becton came back and they moved him to the right tackle. I'm sorry, they moved Mekhi to the right. Mekhi got injured. They signed Dwayne Brown, veteran, who also got hurt. And when they signed Dwayne Brown, they moved George Fant to the right tackle. Practice all of training camp, all of preseason as the right tackle. Then Dwayne Brown gets hurt, midway through this week leading up to game one, and he has to get moved back to left tackle after spending the whole time working on all of the right tackle technique and has to, go back to things he wasn't practicing the entire preseason. So can you really blame him for having such a bad week? I don't know. Maybe a little bit, I don't want to make excuses for him, but he has some valid reasons. Laken Tomlinson, newly acquired Pro Bowler from the 49ers. Everyone's a great offensive lineman until they come to the Jets. I just don't get it. I don't know who we hire as offensive line coaches, but for whatever reason, anyone could be plugged in other organizations and be serviceable. And for us, we sign Pro Bowlers and they just don't know how to play anymore when they come on the Jets. We signed Laken Tomlinson for a lot of money, and he had a lot of pedigree. And granted, he could still be a very good, left guard for us. I think a lot of the issues with him came with having to help out George Fant on the left tackle side. So some of the stats and scores could have been skewed. But this offensive line needs to get it together. Like I said, Joe Flacco is not mobile. We need to figure out a way to protect him so that he can have time to sit there in that pocket because he's not going to scramble outside for anything. Now, another big thing that I didn't like from this coaching staff was the whole first half, they decided we're going to go with two tight ends for pretty much most of the plays. And when doing this, they said we're not going to play Garrett Wilson, because we'd rather have two tight ends than play our 10th overall wide receiver pick, who has shown so much talent throughout camp, so much talent throughout the preseason, and they just have decided not to play him in the first half, to play two tight ends. I get it. You signed two tight ends in free agency. You signed CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin, two very good tight ends, but you didn't even play one of them. You played a practice squad player for the past 2 years who converted to tight end. You played Lawrence Cager as opposed to playing the two players. Playing the two players that you signed, to be your top guys. Like, what are you doing? I just don't get it. So not only are you playing a backup tight end instead of your starter, you're also taking out one of your best weapons, Garrett Wilson, from this game. And you saw him perform once he came in later in the game, and he made stuff out of nothing. And there were plays later on that I saw in the post game, analysis, that a couple plays he was wide open for touchdowns that just Joe Flacco didn't see him or couldn't get to him because of pressure. So Garrett Wilson needs to play a heck of a lot more than he's been playing in this first game, I was very disappointed to see that. Um, so big things with this team that's gone horribly: offense and also special teams. Can the Jets ever get special teams right when it comes to punter and kicker? And I just don't get it. I really don't. The last time they've had a good kicker was when they had Nick Folk. Um, and I'm surprised he's still in the league, by the way. Uh, but we got Greg the Leg, Greg Zerline this year, and we said, you know what, we finally got a real kicker, finally have one. And then what happens? Misses a field goal, misses an extra point. Why does this only happen to the Jets? I really don't get it. And then other than him, we have our punter, Braden Mann, who we drafted. We drafted a punter. Wasted a 6th-round pick on this guy. He punted a ball 20 yards. You might as well have just thrown an interception. You might as well have just gone for it on 4th and whatever it was. If you can only punt the ball 20 yards after wasting draft capital, it's just inexcusable. He's in his 3rd year. He's done this all of his seasons so far. I'm ready to move on from him. They're working out 4 punters this week. I hope they sign one of them, because last year there were question marks surrounding Braden Mann, and this year he's proven that these question marks are valid. The Jets need to get better at moving on from things that don't work out. They really do. Because if they continue to just say, oh, well, we drafted him, we need to keep him. No, you keep whoever is the best player available. You keep if this is a what have you done for me lately league in the NFL. And it needs to stay that way for the Jets to be successful. If you keep on putting merit into, oh, I drafted this guy, I need to keep him. Well, now every time there's a field position battle, we're losing it, because if you punt the ball 20 yards, I think most of the times his punts were 40 yards, which really isn't great either. And if that's what's happening and we're losing field position every drive, if we don't score, which we're not scoring, like, what are we supposed to do? They need a change at punter, and it's ridiculous that I'm talking about punter changes as a big problem, but it really is. Now, there's a lot of bad in that game, but early on, they played pretty well, and in general, there were some bright spots on this team. The defense in particular, I thought that they looked great. I was really shocked to see just how improved the secondary looked. Secondary last year was garbage, absolutely garbage. I mean, I remember games last year where it was just time after time, even on like 3rd and 20 downs, they would just throw easy like 30-yard, gains. That's not the case anymore. You have DJ Reed, who's played a great game, had an awesome interception. I know a lot of people were upset about his interception because Jets were down like 20 points, went to the middle of the field and like celebrated at the middle of the field, and people were saying it was a little too much. I thought that at first too, but it turns out he found out minutes, before the game started, that his father passed away, and this was a way for him to celebrate, with his father for one last time. And I think it made things a lot better in explaining that, because at first that sounded like a very bad image of just the, down 20, going to the middle of the field and celebrating. So glad that that's clarified, and I'm, sorry for him and his family. Now, other than him, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, the 4th overall pick out of Cincinnati, he looked amazing as well. I mean, they really didn't target him often, and he made an excellent play on it passed to Mark Andrews, the Ravens tight end, really their best offensive option. There were, it was posted on the NFL's, main Instagram page. Week one, his rookie debut, he's already making plays that are helping the Jets to stay in games. Now the issue is The defense could look really great, but if the offense can't get a first down, can't get points, they're going to get tired. And that's what happened. The Jets defense looked really good. They even held the Ravens to the lowest rushing yards that they've had um, under Lamar Jackson. So I think the defense is in a really good spot. The offense just really needs to step it up. And I don't know if that's something that could happen until Zach Wilson gets back and we have some mobility at the quarterback position. And even then, a lot of people are afraid that Zach Wilson under pressure or Zach Wilson in general is not the answer. So these are things that we have to find out soon. Hopefully, he'll be back for week 4 against the Steelers. That's the earliest they said he could be available. And if not, I don't have any faith we could win any of these games if the offense isn't, able to perform. Now, one thing that the offense did well this past week was running. They I just don't get why they ran away from, avoided the rush, as soon as they started to go down. I get you need to play catch up when you start, falling behind, but go with what works. Joe Flacco's not at a position in his career where he could win you games. So go with what works. Michael Carter rushed 10 times, 60 yards. That's great. Breece Hall rushed for, I believe, 38 yards. I think his average wasn't as great, but he had a few where he got stuffed and then had a few, 10-yard rushes. He looked good. He had a fun, I mean, we had plenty of plays in this game where typical Jet fashion, we kicked ourselves in the foot, shot ourselves in the foot. And that's what always comes down to it for the Jets. We really didn't look as bad as we were last year. I could say that for a fact. But when it comes down to it, if you shoot yourself in the foot all day, you're going to have the same results as you did last year and lose each game by 30 points. You can't keep making these mistakes. And these mistakes really come down to coaching. Coaching and talent. I mean, but I feel like it's more coaching than it is talent at this point, honestly. I've been a big Robert Saleh supporter, but for me, the seat is starting to get a little bit hot for him. I mean, granted, this is week 1. Week 1s tend to be sloppy, and week 1 is when you tend to have the most overreactions on a team, and say that, oh, this team played great, they're going to the Super Bowl. This team is horrible, they're getting the number 1 draft pick, and it never winds up being exactly the way that you predicted after 1 week of football. But they have to turn it around. They have to stop shooting themselves in the foot. They have to start sticking to a game plan, sticking to a rushing attack. When the Jets were really good in 2010 to 2012, the Mark Sanchez era, when they went to the AFC Championship, 2 years in a row, it wasn't because of Mark Sanchez. He wasn't a great quarterback. It was because of the rushing attack. You don't need a great quarterback when you could rush it. That's why the Titans have been so good. And that's, what the Jets should try to emulate during these next couple of weeks until that you could get Zach Wilson back and, try to find something for your future as a quarterback. But under Joe Flacco, you're not going to have someone who's going to win you games at the quarterback position. So run the ball. It's really that simple. Just run the ball. The offensive line is not a great one for pass protection, but for rushing, they're a pretty solid O-line. That's actually what most of these guys on the line are better at. So stick with it. Work to the talents of your team. Don't make a game plan that is your game plan as a coach. You're supposed to tailor your game plan to your roster that you have around you. Play Garrett Wilson. Stop playing Lawrence Cager. Run the ball when you have 2 great running backs that you've drafted in the past 2 years. It's really that simple. Like, work to the talent of your team. And the Jets never seem to do this. Some other teams that struggled last year have been able to do this. Giants won, Bears won, Lions lost by 3, like I said. Falcons either won or lost by 1, but every other team was competitive. I'm not asking the Jets to come out here and win every game against good teams. Ravens are a very good team. Not asking them to win every game, just asking them to be competitive. I'm tired of in the middle of the third quarter saying, "Oh, this game's over. Let me turn on NFL Red Zone," or saying, "This game's over. Let me see how Sauce Gardner does," and so that I could have something good to come out of this. Give me a competitive game. I want to watch football, not a beatdown. It's tiring. It's pathetic. So hopefully these are things that'll change. Coming up, we have Chargers and Chiefs tomorrow. That I think will be, Thursday night football has not always been known for being the, you know, top teams in each league, best games. It's, often, more of a toilet bowl than a Super Bowl performance. But this Thursday, we have the Chargers and the Chiefs, two really good teams that might, be competing for best team in the AFC, them and the Bills. Bills, who also looked very good on last Thursday, by the way. So the Thursday games this year have actually been a lot better than they've been in the past, which is a pleasant surprise. But for this Chargers and Chiefs game, I believe the line is Chiefs -4.5. Um, I think that for this game, Chiefs will win. I think that it'll be a close game. Both these teams are very talented. I'm sure if Ben was on here, he'll say that Chargers would win because he's been a very heavy Chargers supporter early on. But I think the Chiefs win this one, in very close fashion. Maybe like a 28-27 kind of game, something like that. And so I picked the Chiefs to win, but I picked the Chargers to cover for this game. This week for the Jets, I believe they're playing the Browns, also with a backup quarterback. We'll see if they'll be able to compete this game. If they can't compete against a backup quarterback, I know the Browns are a talented team, but if the Jets can't compete against a backup quarterback, you'll be hearing more of the same from me next week. So we'll have to see. All right. So we'll have more updates, more live reactions throughout this, sports season. And if you have any questions, any feedback for us, you know, we're here. Make sure to like and subscribe and tell us what you want to hear.